Welcome back to the Kyber Collective. I'm one of your three hosts, Annie, and I'm joined by Sig.
Hello.
And Flowers.
Hey, what's up?
And today we are going to talk about The Rise of Skywalker.
Uh-oh.
It's our conclusion of talking about each film. And I suppose they always described it as the end of the Skywalker saga.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? How did you guys feel about that? Like they're implying that there's this end to the Skywalker saga.
I mean, it definitely felt like it ended on a whimper, not a bang.
Yeah. I felt a little insulting even calling this the Skywalker saga. But needless to say, hearing that just makes me not great, not good feeling at all.
Yeah, I have to say I agree. I really actually hated when they described it that way.
Yeah, I think it was with this movie where they called it, this is the Skywalker saga is now concluded, and I'm like, don't taint that with this. This is not the same kind of playing field at all. And maybe that's harsh to say, but am I wrong? Like, is it?
Yeah, it was a bad way to play it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It also makes the choice to give Rey the name Skywalker at the end even more confusing because, like, thematically, that's not the end of the Skywalkers. That's kind of a rebirth. Like, isn't the implication that she's going to go off and be a Jedi now? And it leaves her in the same place kind of Luke is at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Where it's not 100% clear what she's going to do, but the kind of implication is that she might go and found a Jedi school of her own and go be a good Jedi. And so it would be open to the same kind of extension that we gave Luke in this sequel trilogy. Whereas if they hadn't done that, we do have all the Skywalkers die. So that is the end, I guess.
Yeah, that's the worst part of it. It's like you said, it's ending on such a wimpy note that you killed off you did kill off the living Skywalkers before Rey took the name. So
yeah, like the bloodline.
The bloodline is gone.
Yeah,
that's a whole other conversation on how people feel about bloodlines.
Yeah,
it's true. I can't say I ever understood the Skywalker adoption of the name either. I don't know. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. We'll get into all of those things.
Just put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that. Although there's thousands of videos on YouTube just reaming this movie, just tearing it apart, and I think it deserves to be torn apart. It deserves some negativity, I suppose. But I suppose I just wanted to do something different in talking about this. Just because I'm kind of really over all of the negativity in this fandom. It just seems like it never ends. And I wonder if maybe there's just a more constructive way to criticize this stuff rather than just be so vitriolic towards it. I think one of the things that we've had a lot of fun with is watching the prequels and just laughing at them.
Yeah. They should be laughed at.
Right.
Yeah.
We've had so much fun doing that. We've had so much fun memeing the prequels, I'm just wondering if the sequels could ever get to that point, or if it's just too soon, or if they're not even memeable at all. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it possible to one day watch these and like we do the prequels?
Well, I think the distinction for me is when I make fun of it, it's fondly with the prequels, because I think its base is really good. I think the execution in some places were a misfire. I don't have those same fond feelings for the sequel trilogy, but I can meme things that I think everybody found absurd. So like the somehow Palpatine returned and you seeing Poe eyes just completely lose all life. I think that's hysterical, and I resonate with that, Poe. There's just some things that, like, the memes that have come out of the sequels are hilarious, but it's hilarious because it's bad. It's a different vibe for me.
Yeah, I'm with Flowers. It's a lot less loving. I think the thing for me would be to come to a place where I could like mock them lovingly rather than mock them frustratedly.
Yeah.
Which I think is where I'm at now. Is like, I feel like if it had gone through maybe more of a a rethink and a rewrite, I would be able to mock them very lovingly. But they're certainly memeable. I mean, very memeable.
Yeah.
And there are like moments that I think are like, you know, there are definitely moments of genuine enjoyment in all three. There's certainly plenty in The Force Awakens. I think the humor in The Last Jedi doesn't land for me, but I also know that it does land for a lot of people. So like that's, it clearly works. It just doesn't work for me. Because some people really love porgs.
Yeah.
And we all know how I feel about a fuzzy creature.
Yep.
Unfavorably.
So the porgs did not work for me.
Yeah, I didn't really care for the porgs.
And like, yeah, there's like, I mean, there's obviously like intentional jokes in The Last Jedi, and I know that I've seen enough conversation to know that there are people who found them genuinely funny and they work, and like, that's awesome. The Rise of Skywalker is extremely memeable. Like, almost every frame of this you could turn into a meme. The difficulty is doing it with love rather than just straight up ridicule.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very true. Although that is an interesting thing to think about. I think that I definitely prefer the humor that was in The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker.
Same.
Yeah.
As opposed to The Last Jedi. I guess that means I prefer J.J. Abrams' humor over Rian Johnson's humor. I don't know.
I mean, we got that line. We got that line though with that's not how the Force works, and tell that to Conja Club. Like, I love those lines.
Yeah.
They're so funny.
J.J. Abrams has always been able to write like witty repartee. Like, I think that's one of the things that he does a lot better. Like, I think that that's probably playing into his strengths. It's the plot of this film. I think it would have made a great video game.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think also the actors were somehow
Somehow.
better with JJ.
Yeah.
I think they were allowed to probably explore their character more on their own, perhaps. I'm not sure. I enjoyed the acting better with JJ's movies, I think. Especially Finn.
Yeah.
Finn. Yeah. Finn was kind of like he was given a part that was similar to like a headless chicken kind of running around trying to like, there was no real direction, I think, for him in The Last Jedi. And that's so unfortunate because he had so much potential. And then I think by the time he got a chance in The Rise of Skywalker, so much of it was spent with him saying, "Hey, Rey, I have something to tell you," and he never quite even gets to do anything other than that and be supportive and just kind of shout her name really despairingly.
Yeah, aside from the shouting of the name, like, it just seemed like he had more of a personality, more of the Finn personality. And like, I know that there's a lot of bickering going on between him and Poe and Rey, but their personalities, at least, they had them, right?
Yeah.
And they got to spend time together.
Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to go over the movie that could have been. Duel of Fates by it was written by Colin Trevorrow or Trevorrow. I haven't seen a definitive answer on how to pronounce his name, but he's just done the Jurassic Dominion movie. So, well, I wouldn't say that exactly got shining reviews, but it's made a lot of money already. So I think he's done all of them, I think he has. Or the new ones, anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
So he knows his way around a blockbuster. So it seems like this first draft, they took some of the stuff from it, but The Force Awakens is completely different. And I just wonder which one of these you guys would have preferred to see. Like, do you think that this would have been even worse? I'm going to read to you guys the plot from Wikipedia. Because
oh no.
It's the best one that I've read several plot summaries from several different publications, and this is probably the most it's the most neutral. You usually either find them that people are like, this is what should have been. We have all lost, like, this is the most amazing thing ever written, and then on the other hand you have like oh wow, we lucked out. Holy shit. This would have been even so much worse. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It's just very divided. Probably more like The Last Jedi than I think the one thing that everyone can agree on about The Rise of Skywalker is that it wasn't that great. I think it kind of pulled together the Star Wars fandom as a whole to agree on something. It wasn't the best movie in the world. All right. So I'm going to read some of this and then kind of we can break it down. So several years after the events of The Last Jedi, so there's quite the time jump, the First Order now rules the galaxy with General Hux as its chancellor on Coruscant, where the First Order delivers daily public executions for members of a crushed resistance and has blocked communications across the galaxy. So they've shut down the internet across the galaxy.
Okay.
Still free from the First Order's control, Rey, Finn, Poe, Rose, Tico, and BB-8 steal a star dreadnought from the occupied planet of Kuat, take it to Korolev, where surviving members of the Resistance, led by Leia, have established a new base. At the same time, Luke Skywalker's Force Ghost is training Rey, who now wields a double-bladed lightsaber made from the salvaged remains of Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber and haunts Kylo Ren, asking him to redeem himself. However, Rey begins to question Luke's teachings. So, what would you guys have preferred? Luke's Force Ghost training Rey, or what we got with like Leia training her off screen? You guys are both like, can I say neither?
I mean, what I would have preferred is that the understanding of the Force in these films aligned with George Lucas's original 6, and I don't care who trains her.
Yeah.
I find this one a little bit gnarly because because of the conversations that were happening in fandom, which probably shouldn't be influencing how I feel about it, but there was all that criticism about how Rey couldn't possibly do all these things because she hasn't had training and she didn't get a training montage, so how could she possibly use a lightsaber? And it does feel a little too late because we don't really get very much in The Last Jedi. And I don't know if I would have minded the Luke Skywalker treatment, which is kind of what we get, where he has like a training montage on Dagobah and then in between movies he levels up. Like, I think that putting it in the final chapter is the wrong place to have your long training montage. Like, the middle or the beginning would have made more sense. And it did... I did kind of wonder whether it was like a response to fans. They were like, look, we did train her. She knows how to use a lightsaber now.
They had to do something because it didn't make sense that in The Last Jedi you didn't get enough of her training. Like, I feel like that might have been JJ's way to, because he did so much retconning and fixing and. Yeah. So I feel like that was one of the things that he had to address, that she did get some training and she was getting it from from Leia.
I mean, Luke doesn't get a huge amount of training, if I'm being extremely charitable. Like, the Yoda and Luke training sequences, you have a little montage where he's a backpack, and then you have some discussion of the Force, and it's a lot more about the nature of the Force. And I actually think the scenes in The Last Jedi are almost even uncomfortably parallel in some ways, in that we do a little bit of training, and the teacher is a bit like, you lack patience, we're not going to get this. And then she goes down a dark hole and has like an experience with the dark side. And I'm a bit like, we've seen this film.
Yeah.
So would I have preferred a better training sequence in The Last Jedi? Absolutely. Did I think we need another one? No.
Yeah. I was on board with this idea with Luke's Force Ghost training him up until the last sentence. Which goes back to I'm in a state of mind at this point where I'm just not here for the anti-Jedi, anti-philosophy kind of stuff. So
just you wait.
Oh God,
so
I'm not. I'm not. So it's a no from me.
Well, for some reason, the fandom would not accept Rey being trained in the way that they accept Luke being trained.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, Sig. She had about as much as Luke did. Mm-hmm. So, going back to the Duel of Fates. Ren finds a Sith holocron in Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar, but is injured by a booby trap. The holocron leads Ren to seek the training of a 7,000-year-old alien named Tor Valum. Later revealed to be 7,000-year-old alien named Tor Valum, later revealed to be Palpatine's master, Darth Plagueis, who had been resurrected by his unique dark side powers, which include the ability to absorb one's life force. He is killed by Ren using the technique, but not before commending his student on his ruthlessness. So, basically, in this sequence, Kylo Ren is taught to be like a dark side force vampire. And he's also mutilated.
This
Like his face gets pretty mutilated.
Okay.
They kind of kept the Mustafar in the holocron thing, because Kylo does go to Mustafar in the beginning of The Rise of Skywalker.
I think my favorite bit of this that I am sad wasn't there was that Anakin booby-trapped his home and was like, any loser that tries getting through this is gonna get deformed. I love that, actually.
Right, no, it's true.
But everything else,
I'd love just like a tour through his castle. Like you know how they go through the old Death Star and she's like finding all the stuff, but instead it's Anakin's old castle and he finds like the dartboard with Obi-Wan's picture on it and like like Vader's special egg and all of his like orthopedic like implants for when he's having a tough day and like
yeah.
I just watched that film. So Darth Plagueis is back, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, Darth Plagueis.
He teaches Ren how to be a vampire.
Right.
Absorbs the living force.
How generous that he's resurrected and his first act is to train somebody. Like,
hey, Sith's gotta have an apprentice.
Sith's gotta have an apprentice. He just went straight up into that.
But he trained Palpatine. Is this the actual way? Is this the somehow that Palpatine returned? Is using Darth Plagueis' final magic trick?
I guess.
I think you gotta be able to kill the Sith. Otherwise, like...
Yeah, it's getting absurd.
It's getting absurd, yeah. I agree. Do you like this being able to absorb living force as opposed to, I guess what they went with is cloning. Dark science. Secrets only the Sith knew.
Oh god.
I don't like either of them.
Yeah.
I don't like either of them. I can see why this was not used.
Mm-hmm.
The description of Darth Plagueis' powers is super vague, isn't it? Like, it's just that he can manipulate midichlorians and even create life itself.
Yeah.
Which to me does not scream vampire as much as it screams, like, Frankenstein.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we want to tell that story, though, in Star Wars? The Frankenstein story?
No. If Darth Plagueis came in with an army of zombies and...
I mean...
Would I watch Dawn of the Dead Star Wars edition?
I would watch it.
Yes, I probably would.
Yeah.
So far, this plot is equally stupid.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So, Rey learns from the sacred Jedi texts that a device capable of fixing communications is stored in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. The heroes split up, with Finn, Rose, R2, and 3PO trying to restore communications using the device, while Rey, Chewbacca, and Poe depart on a mission to Bonadan to find the planet of Mortis, the location of a vision Rey had with her dueling Ren. So they're looking for a device that will fix the internet.
Right.
They shouldn't even know about Mortis.
She had a vision about it, so I guess that's how she found out.
So she's going...
the eye roll, guys.
She's going off on a mission to find Mortis somehow, and then the others are going off to find a device to fix the internet so they can call for help throughout the universe.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. On Coruscant, Finn and Rose activate the device. So here again, Finn and Rose are together in this one.
Yeah.
Which would allow Leia to send a message to the galaxy to inspire rebellion. But they are attacked by the First Order before completing it. Rose is captured and Finn goes on alone. He fights a stormtrooper with serial number RK-514. Finn, recalling that he is a redeemed stormtrooper, is reluctant to kill the combatant.
Oh no!
Ultimately sparing his life after defeating him. RK-514 taking on the name Rafe. How would we pronounce that? Rafi?
Right? Rafe? I don't know.
Rafe.
Convinces other stormtroopers to defect and help Finn's cause. Finn, with the help of the droids, convinces ordinary citizens to take a stand against the First Order.
Okay.
So he's remembered
He's remembered his backstory 3 movies in.
Yeah.
The staff behind the word remembered in this context is high art. Finn has suddenly remembered his backstory and is going to act appropriately for the first time in 3 films. Just for this, I would rather have watched this film.
Yeah. This is a movie I could watch in like a good way.
More character development than he got in any of the aired movies. I'm here for
That's true. He remembered his backstory.
He remembered his backstory.
Yep. So meanwhile, the Knights of Ren, they've decided to put the Knights of Ren in this one.
Yeah.
Which, fine. Pursue Rey and Bo on Bonadan, and with the help of Poe and Chewbacca, Rey kills all the Knights of Ren during their fight. Rey takes the Knights' ship, which is called the Knife Nine, to Mortis, and Poe and Chewbacca leave to assist Finn and Rose on Coruscant. And I need to add here that Rey has decided to go off on her own to find Mortis. She feels like she needs to do this alone. And Poe doesn't want her to go.
Right.
He's not letting her. And so Rey tries to use the Jedi mind trick on him. And it doesn't work because his mind is too strong, And so they fight about it. And finally she kisses him because he's got a crush on her in this version. She kisses him and is able to use the Jedi mind trick on him then.
Ew.
Right?
Wow. No.
I was debating earlier when we were talking about Colin Trevorrow to point out that the prevailing feature in the Jurassic World movies is the level of misogyny.
Yeah.
It seems that that's just a feature of all of his films. Because that's fucking disgusting.
Ew. Oh my God.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's how she's able to go off on her own, is through tricking him that way.
Wow, that's disgusting.
Cool.
I know, right?
I just feel like someone dumped cold water on me because up until now I was like
vibing.
Laughing. Yeah, I was vibing with this horrible plot.
I didn't think there was anything you could say that would make me go, you know what, that kiss with Kylo Ren wasn't that bad.
This did it, yeah.
This okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I never got that Poe ever had any sort of feelings for her. They just met at the end of The Last Jedi, and he gave her a look she's like, I'm Rey, and he's like, I know.
Yeah.
That wasn't a wow, I'm in love with you now look,
I mean, she did lift a bunch of rocks. I feel like it would work on me. If some cool lady came and lifted a bunch of rocks, I'd be like,
whoa,
your
hi.
number. You free on Friday? What you doing?
Yeah.
So I suppose I can't really cast stones at Poe for that, but
no, I don't think I'm against it. I wouldn't be against them. I wouldn't have been against anything, really. This is the worst way that you could have done it.
The execution is such a the world's most tired trope.
Yeah.
And Ugh.
Okay, so that happens. In the meantime, Leia visits Lando Calrissian, who now owns a bar. I feel like this is a little bit more believable than he just happened to show up inside of a tank in Pisana. But he owns a bar. She asks him to lead the people that answered the resistance call for help to fight against the First Order, but he refuses the offer. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
Finn leads the revolution of citizens on Coruscant, with Poe, Chewbacca, and the resistance arriving to assist in the battle against the remaining First Order forces. Finn also convinces some stormtroopers to defect from the First Order and join them in battle. Lando also has a change of heart and arrives with an army of smugglers to aid the revolution. While he learns the First Order is nearing defeat, Hux kills himself using a purple-bladed lightsaber from his collection. As an aside, it is discovered that Hux is a Jedi fanboy and has been trying to learn how to use the Force on his own.
And he kills himself with Mace Windu's lightsaber.
Yeah, what the hell?
A purple-bladed lightsaber. I mean, it was probably implied that it was Mace Windu's, but...
The offended look that Sig has right now as #1 Mace Windu fan. I agree completely.
I mean, yeah. Can't just take Mace Windu's lightsaber.
No.
Yeah, no, he has a whole collection.
Yeah.
He's a fanboy, apparently.
Okay. And a fanboy within the First Order, that's... So does the First Order have a different ideological stance on the Jedi then? Like, are they cool?
It doesn't make any sense.
That's the correct answer, yes.
Hux has this whole backstory, and it is canon. If you ever go to the park, which I've never been to the park, but I've read about Galaxy's Edge, there's a backstory to Hux there, where he like had an abusive father, and why he is the way he is, and I guess secretly he
by this point, isn't it too late to have that kind of shoved in backstory? Like,
yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
Also, this is like next level, because like I was already annoyed about the fact that I have to learn about most of the backstories in either comic or novel releases. But now I have to pay to go to a theme park to get the full picture. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, what is that? I'm sorry.
There's a whole story of there's a Hux Kylo Ren story that happens on a ride. Yeah, you have to pay to go on a ride to get that story. So.
Okay.
they get stranded on a planet together or something like that. I haven't read the whole thing, but
the one thing I do like about this is that Kylo Ren's defining feature is that he had like weird daddy issues, and I like the fact that Hux had an actual terrible upbringing with an actual terrible dad, and Kylo probably sat there being like, "You don't understand, my dad doesn't understand me," and Hux was like, "Please stop talking." He's like, "He wouldn't let me wear all black. He didn't take me to the Green Day concert." Like, it's just...
That's a good point. Yeah, Han. It was definitely nothing like his father. Okay.
I think I can appreciate that this version is trying to put in some character stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's the most positive part of this version.
The Finn stuff is great. I'm here for the Finn plotline.
Yeah, the Finn plotline, I'm really digging it. I would have loved to see him get all of these stormtroopers to defect from the First Order, and I would love to have seen them go to Coruscant. Yeah, I'm totally here for that.
Coruscant also apparently is kind of Blade Runner-esque. It's turned into just these different levels. Most people have turned into scavengers, and then it's basically just a mess. It would have been cool to see how they would have turned Coruscant into this hellscape, sort of. Okay, so on Mortis, Rey fights Kylo Ren, who blinds and defeats her, almost killing her with his new power to absorb life from the living, with his new vampire powers. Luke's Force Ghost offers moral support to Rey, who now wears a blindfold before confronting Ren for a second time. So she is doing the Kanan thing.
Yeah.
Rey states her masters were wrong in rejecting the dark side and embraces both sides of the Force. The dark and light.
God.
Coexisting.
Shut up about the Great Jedi.
I take back
The
every
dark
compliment
and
I've given
light.
this.
Coexisting in true balance, giving her the upper hand and allowing her to defeat Kylo Ren. Ren dies redeemed.
Why? What? When?
What?
Who? When did he?
Why?
Healing Rey with the Force
Oh, okay.
after Leia calls out to him. So it's sort of like the same deal where Leia feels that they are fighting each other, and so she reaches out to him, and then Luke's also reaching out to him
And that
while he's like sucking the life force out of Rey, and the light side is flowing into him, and he's starting to be redeemed, where the darkness is, I guess, is flowing into her and giving her like the upper hand in defeating him.
And he's like, "Oh, sorry, my mom says I can't be a vampire anymore."
Exactly. So he dies redeemed, healing Rey with the Force after Leia calls out to him. His last words reveal Rey's true birth name is Solana. So her name is Rey Solana. And he knows this because he killed her parents.
What?
He knows this, yes, because he killed her parents. Snoke told him to one time.
Yeah.
And there's a vision, Rey's vision from the very first movie of Kylo with the Knights of Ren when like they're standing there in the rain. It goes back to that moment and like he's killing her parents.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
This version I would define as unhinged.
So, on the verge of death, Rey meets with the ghosts of Luke, Yoda, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who allow her to choose between staying dead or returning to life.
Oh.
And I have to add that in this, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Luke all tell her, like, you've taught us something.
Okay.
And that we need to use both the light and the dark side of the Force.
No. No.
Look, even if that were the case, I'm not sure Yoda would admit it.
No, I completely agree with you there. There's no way in hell Yoda's admitting that shit. No way in hell.
This whole, oh man, did he like just finish the 7th Harry Potter book when he was writing this or something? Like,
right?
Okay.
So the film ends with a medal ceremony in which Finn,
my god,
Poe, Rose, and Chewbacca are commemorated. Sometime later, Finn and Rose settle on the planet Modesta, where they create a home for Force-sensitive children who want to become Jedi, and the Broom Boy is there. One day, a silhouette approaches the homestead, revealing herself to be Rey, who will teach the children to become Jedi and how to keep the balance of the light and dark sides of the Force. And she's not blind anymore. She was healed, I suppose.
Cool.
So that's the end.
Well, that sucked.
I feel bad. I feel ill. The weird thing is there's some bits of this I really like, actually.
Yeah.
I like that it goes in a direction and it goes really hard in those directions. You really lose me when the light and the dark, when you start messing with how the Force actually operates as defined by the Star Wars universe pre-Disney. You lose me completely. So I think if you had picked out some things, I actually would have been okay like with this version if you took out some things and some heavy editing. But the minute that happens, like I'm even okay with the blinding because like I think with Kanan, I was like, yeah, okay. I actually think there's something to be said there. This is just no. This is no for me.
Yeah.
At least with how he's written the Force and the other Jedi. I'm not here for anything that reinforces this kind of idea. So
no, and he really goes hard in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
has George Lucas read this? Like,
I hope not.
George. Yeah, I don't. When he called them white slavers, I can't imagine what he called them after reading it. Maybe this was I don't know.
If he hasn't, we got to put him on stroke watch because, like,
yeah, I know.
Oh man,
yeah, I think actually, I'm glad we kind of walked through this both to get a sense of how much was stolen from it, but like the problem that I have with The Rise of Skywalker as released is that weirdly it has too much story. Like there's too much going on. This is a much tighter story. Like it has basically 2 plot lines, 3 sort of 2.5. You count Leia.
Yeah,
you have a really tight story of like this revolution happening on Coruscant following Finn, Rose, and so on, and then you have the Jedi confrontation between Rey and Kylo. I think those work so much better. The pieces that were stolen make so much more sense in context because that like stabbing Kylo Ren and then bringing him back to life and Leia dying and then only to have them like swap life forces 3 times at the end of the film again doesn't work anywhere near as neatly as just doing it at the end of the film. Like all of these things that they've stolen are like much better in their original context. It's almost like the same thing I have with The Last Jedi. It's like, story's kind of tight. I can get behind it. Hate what you did with the Force. Ideologically, disaster.
Yeah, 100%. This is a really interesting On a side-by-side comparison, I might have enjoyed watching this version more.
Mm.
But I think the version that we received is the logical. If you have to pick between two disasters, you would have gone with the one that J.J. Abrams tried to do.
Yeah, as far as disasters go, I definitely prefer JJ's disaster.
Yeah, I'm really tired about. I mean, is it just, are we out of luck as Jedi Star Wars Force fans? I think it's not looking good because they have fundamentally redefined the universe on how the Force works, and I have a
Yeah,
really big problem with that. And I know that the sequels went in a certain direction, but everything that's coming out is reinforcing that direction, and I just can't abide it.
yeah. I also feel like it's getting a push from the fans too.
Mm.
I think the fans like the idea of this whole yin yang idea of the Force.
Yeah.
For the most part, they think it was the reason why Anakin fell the way he did is because the Jedi were just too stupid to. You know, we've talked about this a million times, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think it comes from. I don't think it was explained. I don't think it's been explained lately very well.
Mm.
So I think people are confused.
Yeah.
But should they explain it in black and white?
Yeah.
Should they have to?
I think the people who are creating this content for Disney Lucasfilm, they need to think about who they're hiring. If you don't know the parameters of the universe, like I don't like that they're changing the definitions of things
Yes.
that have existed for 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you start changing that, I think everything that was built before has lost meaning.
It's a bit like if you suddenly said that like a lightsaber no longer retracts, it's a sword, like a permanently extended sword, but it just has like a crystal in it that makes the edge really hot. It's like that actually fundamentally has changed the nature of what a lightsaber is. It's still functional, you can still fight with it, but it's like it's not the same thing. And it's very confusing to me that there's not, like, normally my understanding, not being a person who does this for a living, is that there's like a series Bible of some description that outlines the key tenets of things that you can add to but not overwrite. So like the established characters should be set up in that. The nature of the Force, the layout of the galaxy are all things that you should not be overwriting because they should be in your series Bible. So like whoever has described the Force in this seems to not, either they don't have one, which is crazy, or the person who wrote it doesn't seem to know how the Force works as outlined in the previous 6 films, because this is not adding to the nature of the Force. This is rewriting the nature of the Force, which are 2 very different things. I have no problem with additions, with the exception of some that are like functionally a little bit silly. Like the Force healing is one that I think is falling into that gray area. It makes some of the past things a little bit awkward, but like,
Yeah, I don't hate Force healing. I don't, but it does raise some questions.
Yeah, but at least that's building on like an established set of abilities versus like rewriting what ability, like what the nature of the abilities are. It's like it's like a magic system. Like in anything, you have an understanding of how the magic system works, and there are things you can add to it, and there are things that you can't.
It's true. No, you're right. And the Harry Potter works because there's rules to the magic.
Yeah.
This would be like if you go in like book 7 and Voldemort decides to completely change how magic is wielded,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the sequels are guilty of this, and that the way that things are done is altered. It's a big problem for me. I think that's part of why even on like a baseline enjoyment, it's difficult because so much of it is not the parameters that are established.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing The Rise of Skywalker kind of has going for it is that it's always very nebulous. Like, I think The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker are much more nebulous about what's happening with the Force than The Last Jedi is. Because you have Rey's sort of toying with the dark side, where she accidentally fries a different ship than the one Chewbacca was on, apparently. And then she has this moment of like, who am I? Am I falling to the dark side? Is this what my future holds? But like, it's all done in a way that's sufficiently vague that it's not really saying much about the nature of the Force. It's more about Rey as a person and her emotional struggle.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I give him credit for not breaking the Force.
Yeah. Thanks for not breaking the Force, at least. At the very least. Thanks for not going there. It's a very low bar.
And it's weird because it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the flip side, like, knowing now that the idea of this Force healing and the, like, energy transfer thing, and I guess also the Force dyad, like the way Palpatine steals their life force and then comes back to life, if that's all based on, like, Darth Plagueis, I'm like, at least I understand where you're coming from now, because, man, did that come out of left field. Like,
my whole thing with the Rise of Skywalker is that I think there's some good ideas in there. Like, I kind of like the Force dyad. It just did come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, it came out of nowhere. It just sounded ridiculous. Like when Kylo Ren finally tells her that, you know, she's the granddaughter of Palpatine and that they're a dyad, just the words coming out of his mouth just sound so ridiculous. He's like, you are a Palpatine. and every time I'm just like, I can't believe they made Adam Driver say this line. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just embarrassing. But it didn't have to be. It could have been cool. Like, they established the Force bond in The Force Awakens, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of created this bond between the two of them when she was strapped to the chair. And then there was more Force bond in The Last Jedi. Was it that Snoke pulling the strings, or was he lying? Never really found out. To me, I suppose he was lying all along, because in the third movie, then they're just really having these serious Force bond moments where stuff that's in her world is spilling out into his world. And there's some pretty cool scenes of their fights during the bond. Mm-hmm. It's just explained in such a dumb way. It's like there needed to be, if they were going to go this route, there needed to be a fourth movie.
Or a plan, and they could have actually started the whole thing coherently from the beginning.
Right, a plan from the beginning, but like at this point, after The Last Jedi, and then with Carrie dying, like what could they do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think The Force Awakens backed The Last Jedi into a corner, and it was like The Last Jedi was painted into a corner. And then The Last Jedi, like, paints the corner but fucks up the whole floor walking out. And then The Rise of Skywalker just burns down the building in penance. Like, these movies are fighting with each other in a way that's actively kind of uncomfortable to watch. Like,
oh, I agree. And it's like The Last Jedi hated The Force Awakens, and The Rise of Skywalker hated The Last Jedi.
And it's like part of the reason why I find it, I mean, it's already an overfull movie, but so much of it was walking back on stuff from the previous movie that didn't need to be walked back on. I mean, you know, it's like a relay. It's not a...
It spent a good... I remember when we watched this in the theater, I felt like the whole first hour of watching this movie was just fixing everything and changing, making sure the audience knows this is the real thing. Forget what you knew before. And it felt really strange that it was really like fighting with the other movie that was fighting with the other movie. And you're just kind of getting whiplash. Because like, what am I actually supposed to be getting from this?
Yeah, and like circling way back to the very first question, like it's preposterous to call this like the end of the Skywalker saga, because it's like the saga kind of implies coherence in a way that these films do not get along. These films are the three kids in the back of the car kicking each other. Like, it's just
it really is.
You know,
that's a good analogy.
The sequel trilogy is like a really expensive round robin where the first person wrote the first movie and then gave the pen to the next person who got like the last line of The Force Awakens and is like, all right, I gotta build something off of this. And then the same thing happens with The Rise of Skywalker. It's really disconjointed, and I think that does a really big disservice to any cohesiveness that there could have been possible with The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Okay, let's get all of the other ridiculous stuff out of the way. And let's try to laugh about it, you know? Let's try. Let us try. Palpatine coming back. I mean, it's given us, the three of us are always, right now, we're always just like, somehow
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, everything that he says is so funny. His casual, like, I've died before. You're just like, what?
No, it's true.
What? His, like, vats of Snoke clones that he just has in his house. Like, the fact that he has so many broken Snokes, like, and the fact that he designed them like that. It's not like that was what he'd aged into. He was like, you know what I want is a man who just looks deformed, and I'm going to have about 20 of them in a tube, and that's just going to be in my living room. Like, it's funny. It's funny. This film is very funny.
Yeah,
and he's kind of attached to a crane, sort of.
Yeah.
He's like those claw machines where you try and get a toy.
But you got Palpatine
It's true, yeah. And Ian's having a great time. You can tell, like, he's having a great time doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
No, I loved I love Ian McDiarmid's portrayal of Palpatine, so I wasn't exactly like furious when he showed up, but I was furious at the concept that he had to show up.
Yeah.
And he's got all of his like minions there. Like, there are like thousands and thousands of people in robes, like in the back, like ooga chugga, ooga 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 chugga, and you're just like,
true.
Who are you?
Who are these people? Where did you come from?
I know.
What are you doing?
They're like a spectator audience in the background. It's so weird. You know, he's just been sitting in Exegol rotting for decades, just angrily stewing on his crane.
But like every time he moves, a finger falls off. Oh no! That was my pinky. Can someone get that?
It's true, and it's one of the things that they don't explain very well in the movie, that you have to like read the ancillary material, is that his clones never lasted too long. They always would just fall apart after a while. I'm not sure how Rey's dad as a failed clone was fine.
Yeah.
I think maybe because I'm not sure if it was a force sensitive clone. I don't remember.
Maybe he wasn't fine.
There's just a lot of weird stuff going on with that whole thing.
I don't really remember that, because any of this. I just know that he was a failed clone because he was nice. Was that what it was?
Yeah, he was. He was a good guy, but I don't think his clone was force sensitive. I don't think he was force sensitive.
Then why did they have to? Why was this big campaign to kill him and his?
He
wife?
wanted to kill her.
I mean, well, that is the question, because why did he want to kill her when she was a child? Why did he want to kill her later in the film? Because he's like, dude, Kylo Ren, hey Kylo, go kill Rey. And then later he's like, don't kill Rey. I will kill Rey, and then I will absorb her youthful body. And you're like, that's weird. And then somehow then he wants to also kill her, but not kill her. I mean, this man's normally organized. I know he's on a couple fingers, but like...
Yeah, he doesn't know what he wants.
No.
He's like, kill the girl. And then when she finally comes to him, he's like, I didn't want you dead.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you.
The whole time.
Yeah.
I think maybe we're on Palpatine clone like 64. There's, you know, his mind's going a little bit. He's got clone dementia. There's another one on a crane in the back ready to come out. Like,
dude, there was such an easier way to get this girl to Exegol. Like, from the beginning, if you just sent her a coupon for like bottomless chicken wings and be like, "Come get, you got a free coupon for this. Come get."
Or just a note that says, "I'm on Exegol. Love, Dad."
Love, Dad. Yeah.
He didn't have to do this convoluted shit with Kylo to get her there.
I know.
And one thing that has never really sat right with me is, you know, after Kylo goes there, he like finds him, and Palpatine just straight up says, you know, I've been every voice inside your head. How Kylo doesn't just murder him right then and there.
Yeah.
Because he's basically just telling you, yeah, I completely like fucked you over like your whole life. So, and then Kylo's like, yeah, sure, I'll do what you want. I just always thought that was so dumb. And at first I thought Kylo was he was gonna be a double agent or something, but it wasn't that. I'm not even sure what he was doing, honestly.
I don't think Kylo was sure what he was doing.
Yeah, like, no, I don't think he ever knew what he was really doing.
No. I also never really understood what he wanted, essentially. Like, power, ultimate power. I never really got the sense that he wanted to rule the galaxy.
No, I mean, I initially thought he was trying to prove some point.
Yes.
And what the point led to by this film's, I don't know. So it's not, maybe JJ didn't really know either, and was like, "Oh, we got to turn him into a good guy now," but in a really convoluted and messy way.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why that first Colin Trevorrow's screenplay didn't really work for them is because I don't think they wanted him mutilated, for one. I think they wanted him to be beautiful.
Yeah, that's the money
and handsome. And I think they definitely wanted him to be more redeemed. I don't think they needed another bad guy besides him.
I mean, they could have changed around how things went with Darth Plagueis. Like, imagine resurrecting someone and being like, "Can you help me?" And then that person's like, "Yeah, sure." It's like Underworld.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think they were comfortable turning him into the full out villain of the whole thing.
Yeah.
He always had to be redeemed in some way, like Darth Vader, I suppose.
Yeah, I get it.
He was, in the end, he did end up a lot like his grandfather.
Dead.
Dead, exactly, yeah. Very dead.
Yeah.
But in a way that was,
yeah.
You know, he had a last act of compassion.
Yeah.
You know. Another silly thing from The Rise of Skywalker is that dagger.
Oh, the dagger.
That's where the whole video game thing comes in. It's like they're leveling up the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like a quest, you know? She had this quest. Yeah. She had to go get the dagger. The dagger, if you put it in the exact right spot, it would show you where to go. And it's like, that would be fun in like a game. It doesn't really work on screen.
Well, it's nested quests too, because it's set up originally. It's like, okay, so you need a wayfinder. And then you're like, okay, so to find the wayfinder, you need this dagger. And then you have to take the dagger to the special place and get it to line up, and then it goes like do 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 do, and then you get your next quest to go find your wayfinder. Like you shouldn't have nested MacGuffins in a film. If you that is
so many MacGuffins.
Yes, put the pen down and think about what you've done, and like start over, mate. That is video game quest writing.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you she also, like, had a task. She had to, like, I don't know, collect 10 droids and then, like, turn them into Leia for loot.
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely one of the... I don't think that was needed at all. It was just a mess. I'm not sure why they did that.
I mean, on the flip side, you had a movie like The Mummy, which did have similar... things that had to be done. Like, she wanted the book of Amun-Ra, but then she already had the key. The key was presented to them earlier in the movie. But I feel like it's like a fun adventure film in there, and it's misplaced in here, and it's not quite executed really well.
Right. That was the whole, they're just doing too many things. Like, did you want to do a fun adventure film, or do you are
you trying to be a serious,
right,
force sort of film? Yeah, tonally, what was it? What was The Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, I don't think it knows. There's just too much convolutedness.
Yeah.
Like the dagger and, the clones, the Palpatine clones. And another thing that has always baffled me is Leia's Force vision on her last night of training. I've just always been like, what? You saw the death of your son at the end of your Jedi training. Or the end of your Jedi path, I meant to say. So you just put down your lightsaber.
Is this some kind of really bad parallel to Anakin's vision of Padme dying?
The Anakin's goal of coping with vision's good.
It was just so convoluted, and when I remember seeing it, and I was just like, what? Like, you're introducing this now?
Yeah.
Like, Luke was the one that mentions it on Ahch-To, and it's just, this movie has too much that they bring up at the 11th hour without ever being mentioned before or hinted at or anything. And it just raises a bunch of questions to me. So Leia was training with Luke. It was her last night of Jedi training. And I have questions about that. Like, if you have a son and you're marrying Han, and that's all fine and good that you guys have these lax Jedi roles in the new school or whatever, but like, what's up with her in the attachment kind of a deal? Because I mean, or had she not had him yet?
I don't think there's any thinking that went through with this, Annie. Like, I don't know how much thought went into that.
Yeah, I agree. There's no thought whatsoever.
Yeah.
No.
They just had to have a way for Leia to show up at that last moment there during their fight.
Yeah.
I suppose. And her having a Force vision years before was...
It's like you're telling us a lot of things at the 11th hour, and it loses any impact that it could have had as a story because of the way it's being shown.
It was cool to see her and Luke fighting each other, you know, that was cool, but it didn't make any damn sense.
It felt just a little bit thrown in there. It was cool to see, but I didn't see the importance.
A little bit. Felt quite a lot thrown in there.
Yeah, it was...
All right, I'm being kind. Yes, it was flung in there recklessly.
The definition of pulling something out of your butthole.
Yeah.
I suppose they really had a problem with what they were going to do with Leia. I don't know. Do you think that they should have just completely left Leia out of the film? Or do you think it's right that they used all of that found footage of her? Or do you think it was creepy?
I think what's really creepy is the amount of time that her dead body is on screen. Because, like, she dies, I want to say, like, maybe halfway, 3/4 through the film. And then... her body's just there, and then her body is there till basically the end of the film, and you get a couple shots of people sitting next to her dead body, and I found that quite ghoulish, knowing that Carrie Fisher had actually passed away. I don't think the found footage works, because I don't think they had enough to really make it feel organic. I prefer it to having digitally, like, had someone else come in and then digitally put her face on it, because that would have been beyond creepy. But I think they were really backed into a corner, like really backed into a corner. So it was kind of a no real good option, because I think having her die off screen would have been a bit of a terrible send off for a beloved character. So it's one of the arenas in which I do have tremendous pity for them, because, like, what would have been the best choice?
Right.
Yeah, I'm with Sig on this. I also think, for me personally, if they had just kind of maneuvered the story around so that they didn't need to show her death like that, I would have been fine. But I guess, like you said, they were painted into a corner and you had a cast member die.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about, like, Luke's death in The Last Jedi, he had this, like... I don't like his death in The Last Jedi, I'll preface with that. But you do have this moment of him, like, fading into the sunset. It is a send-off. It's like a moment of, like, him releasing into the Force. Whereas Leia's like a corpse on a slab for 1/4 of this film and then just disappears. Like, it's not a very graceful way of releasing her into the Force. It makes me really uncomfortable on rewatch, to be honest. Like, every time I get a little bit like, I don't like this very much. I feel like there are ways that you could have done it and had her death, like, entirely non-violent, kind of becoming one with the Force happen. And you could, like, the way they shot it with Luke was from behind, so you could easily have a body double.
Yeah.
But in a way that would have been maybe more, like, respectful or less ghoulish, or I don't know. But I don't envy them having to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And her last act being sort of like she basically, you know, sacrificed herself to bring Kylo back to Ben Solo. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it's fine. It's what we have. It's what we have. It's what we have. And I have to say that one of the things that I actually did like about this movie is Harrison Ford's return and the acting that was going on with when Ben saw his dad in that memory. You know, when he says the lines from The Force Awakens again, he's like, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I can do it. And Han is just, you know, saying you can. And Ben's like, Dad, and he's going to say, you know, he wants to say, I'm sorry, or I love you, or something. And then Han's just like, I know. I just lost it. I was like, oh my God, like these two men really are amazing actors. And that scene was acted so beautifully. And And it just, when Carrie said it to him in the or was it, what was it, 1980s something, you know, it was like romantic love, but this was love too, but a different kind of love between a father and a son. And it was just so powerful to me, you know?
Yeah.
I watched that scene sometimes and I can't believe it's in this movie because it's such a powerful scene for me. And even just that their whole Kylo and Rey's lightsaber battle there in the water there is probably one of my favorite lightsaber battles in the whole thing. I remember telling you that before. I don't know, just because it's just so emotional. You can just tell. And it's acted so well.
I think those moments are really successful because they are really good, well done emotional beats to the story. And I agree with you in that the scene with Han and Kylo / becoming Ben is a strong point to the film because it's the conversation that you have wanted to see. I do have to just laugh a little bit because like my understanding is Han Solo was not force sensitive, so this is kind of like Kylo forgiving himself, but it's still something that was nice to see, and it's a good touching point of when he makes his decision and then follows up with helping Rey in her quest. I wish there had been more of this kind of thoughtfulness in the emotional beats of the rest of the film.
Yeah, and I mean, I liked what happened when she read him through. I've always said, you know,
yeah,
Rey shoots first. You know, she's definitely, she shoots first and asks questions later. And she read him through, and then she was like, "Oh shit!" And she realized what she'd done. One of the things about this movie that's interesting to me is she's just so afraid of herself. And because she sees herself on the throne with him in that vision, and she's so afraid of going to the dark side that it's like she is inching to the dark side. It's like Qui-Gon should have like warned her. Your thoughts become your reality.
Yeah.
She's going down that path, and it's something that Kylo can relate to actually, because same thing happened to him. And then when she runs him through, she's just like, oh God. You know, and she heals him and says, you know, I did want to take your hand. I wanted to take Ben's hand. I thought that was a great part of the movie, honestly.
Yeah, I think the two of them are the only characters that get any kind of moment. Like, the narrative doesn't breathe. It doesn't stop at any point except for a handful of times. And I think both of them are the only characters that actually get that moment to sit there and actually do some character work. Everyone else is running around like headless chickens.
Yeah.
It's very true.
And like when it does slow down, it's good. It's like there's some really great character work in there. I find the bones of the character of Rey really interesting. I think a lot of the time she's underserved by the fact that they don't really explore much with her.
Mm-hmm.
She just kind of flings herself from situation to situation as the plot demands without ever getting these moments. And when you do get them, they're fantastic. And same with Kylo. I mean, he just kind of goes where the narrative wants. I think this is almost the most egregious film for it, really. And him like, I'm evil. I found Palpatine. I'm not evil. I'm Ben. I'm dead. And you're like, wait, what? Like,
yeah.
Slow down, man.
I think, yeah. He needed a little bit more time to go through his little Zuko journey because it was happening all at once.
Yeah, but like it is that linchpin of that conversation with him, and it's a great conversation. I mean, I'm like Flowers. I can't quite get past the fact that I think he's talking to himself.
Yeah.
But the actual scene, the scene is so good. It's I think the best scene in that film, and like the strongest acting and one of the few moments that has genuine emotion. It's excellent. But then like after that, I mean, I think, like you said before, Annie, I don't think he really speaks after that.
No, he says, ow.
Yeah, like one of our major characters that we have been following for 3 movies has had an extraordinary change of heart, changed sides at the last minute, is fighting evil incarnate who's come back on a mechanical claw, and he doesn't say a word.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have a moment. And then, like, he and Rey kiss, but, like, how did we get from stabbing to making out with, like, please talk to each other. It makes me mad. Like, can we not have 5 minutes of you guys connecting as actual characters instead of action figures that J.J. Abrams is playing with? Like, I need them to be people.
Yes.
Yeah. But,
Yes.
you know, she feels like she's like 1 second away from going to the dark side. So she takes herself to Octu to like live in exile like Luke did.
Yeah.
And of course Luke's there. I mean, thank God Luke got to show up. I mean, it was kind of like, but at least he got to show up. And like he pulled his X-wing out of the water, which was cool. He did his Yoda moment. And I'm not sure how Ben got to Exegol.
Yeah.
Because she took his ship.
Yeah. His ship that we already watched blow up earlier in the film.
Yeah. I guess that was his backup ship.
Yeah.
It was just the other one parked in the back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure how Kylo got to Exegol, but he showed up with a blaster.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, for me, up until this point in the trilogy, I did not like Kylo Ren whatsoever. But there was something that clicked. That when he became Ben Solo, I was like, okay, I can get behind this guy. There's just such a personality shift. And he didn't even speak.
Mm.
It's a testament to Adam Driver's acting because you see
I was floored. He goes to Exegol and he's doing all these moves. He's got this blaster. He's doing Han moves like shooting without looking and sliding across the floor and shrugging. You know, like he sees his old friends, the Knights of Ren, and he's like, sorry guys, I'm gonna have to kill you now.
I know.
You know? And he does have that cool little battle there, and
he's got a whole personality now. That's not just
exactly. He has a personality, and he's not even speaking.
Yeah.
Wait, he threw himself down that I don't know what it was, like a cave, and lands on something, and he's like, ow. It's actually kind of funny. I mean, he's definitely Han's son in these moments.
Yeah, he could tell he was a major dork and in like a really adorable way as Ben Solo.
Yeah, Ben Solo was a huge dork. I would have liked to have met Ben Solo.
Yeah, if only they let him speak.
Yeah. If only he was given a few more lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after he brings her back, there's a moment that really like just like pierced me in the heart. To be dramatic, he smiles after they kiss. He smiles, and it's the first time the guy smiled in 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, like it's such a nice like smile with crooked teeth, and then he dies. Or at least he died smiling.
Yeah.
Just the life of Ben Solo. Oh my gosh.
So, for the record, I did not watch this film when it came out. Presumably my friend was sick of taking me to see Star Wars films. So the first version of this that I ever heard was Flowers phoning me after she'd watched it, and she did a dramatic reenactment of the entirety of The Rise of Skywalker over the phone. And I was like pissing myself. And so I thought, okay, well, yeah, she's obviously like taking the piss of this film a little bit. Like it can't be as ridiculous as she described it. And it was funnier to watch the real thing. Like everyone falling off cliffs, everyone dying, sitting up, random kissing, the funniest death scene in the entire universe. It was a real disservice, man. Like,
yeah.
Like, you're talking about all of this acting work, this character work that he's putting into, like, non-verbal performance. And he's doing all of this work, and then the script is like he's like, I don't know, he's like a Shakespearean actor in a 4th grade play or something. Like, it's just, it is the weirdest thing I've ever watched. Just to understand how this film was made.
It's a shame, man.
Yeah.
I remember watching the end of, like, when he dies, and I was like, really? That's it? Like,
yeah.
They? Like,
yeah.
all of that for this? Like,
well, and you know, like films can kind of, like, the way you put things on camera can really, like, increase, or, like, it can shape the emotion of, like, the scene.
Yeah.
And they just didn't, it's like they just didn't bother, because he just, like, flumps down.
Yeah.
And I was like, like, I was starting to feel an emotion. Like, was this meant to be comedic? Like, did you not think a better angle? Like, it just What?
Yeah, I don't think it was well.
What is this film?
I the night that I went to see it, like I saw it on opening night. Of course, I had to go see it on the opening night,
Of
and
course.
I go into this movie, and I'm not a Kylo Ren fan at all. Like I've always like called him a whiny little bitch. That's been my description of him. That was my description of him for like the entirety of the sequels. I didn't start liking the guy until he became Ben Solo in the last couple of minutes of the movie when he doesn't talk at all. Yes. When he died, it didn't phase. Like I wasn't like, oh no, he died. Like I was just like, oh, that makes sense. Like, what was he gonna do? Like, they would have executed him for like being responsible for the murders of billions. I don't know, a lot of people. So I understood his death. What else could they have done with him? Quite honestly,
Yeah.
And he sacrificed himself anyway. I'm not sure he could have lived with what he'd done, but. So after the movie was over, I go to the bathroom, and there's this group of girls standing by the mirror, and they're crying their eyes out.
Oh.
And one of them says, "I feel so betrayed." And I was like, what? What? I was like, oh, they must be Raylos.
Oh.
They seriously were like crying their eyes out. I think in one moment they were so happy to see them kiss, and in the next, he dies. It
Emotional.
It must have
been it must have been really hard. But I remember thinking like, man, like I never got there like at all. Like I never really thought that the two of them were that great together.
No.
Or, it was just not something that I really thought about a whole lot.
I definitely think it was a bad day for Raylos after that.
Very bad day.
Yeah.
The girls, they actually inspired me to, because there was just so much emotion there that I was like, what are they saying that I'm not seeing? They must be saying something. So I go home and I get on AO3, right? And I look for like a really popular Raylo fan fiction, because I'm just like, why are these girls so emotional? There has to be a reason. And I start reading this fic, and I swear to God, I couldn't put it down. I read this thing straight. I lost sleep. It was such a good fic. I was like, it was better than most of the Star Wars books, like all of the legends. Like it's better than so many of the published Star Wars books. I couldn't get past it. The girl that wrote this was a wizard. I have to say, honestly, there's a lot of good writing in that fandom. I think there's a lot of shitty, terrible, horrible writing in the fandom too, but there's some great writing in the fandom.
Yeah.
And that really sort of like makes you think. Then I started to understand. I was like, okay. I started to feel bad for the poor Raylos.
Alas, poor Raylos.
Yeah, I still think he had to die,
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like a welcome to Star Wars, because everybody that I love is dead.
Yeah, what was he gonna do? Live? No.
Yeah, like there's no living. All of my favorite characters are gone. So welcome to the club. This is suffering.
Yeah, welcome to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Suffering.
Yeah.
I think some of the best parts of The Rise of Skywalker, honestly, is the ancillary material, which shouldn't be how things are at all.
Yeah.
The comics, like I'm a comics girl anyway, but like The Rise of Kylo Ren, that comic, I read it, it like messed with me. Like sometimes like I can sit around and think about Wanda Maximoff and start crying and being depressed because of everything that's happened to this poor girl, right?
Yeah.
Like she's lost everything. The same thing, I can do the same thing with the character of Kylo Ren just from that comic. He never had a chance. As far as if you read that comic as canon, it's the same deal with Wanda. Like the guy tried and the universe just wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he was written that way from the get-go. Like for The Force Awakens, he was 100% school shooter vibes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't give him this sympathetic backstory until The Last Jedi.
That's how, I mean, it speaks to the problems with the sequels, is that there's so much that wasn't planned or filled in or explained. I should say explained. There wasn't enough explained. There's nothing there. So a lot of supplementary material had to fill in those gaps for the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the good stories are.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, is these, the books, and
Mm-hmm.
like the Rise of Skywalker book, when Rey is, the way she thinks is fascinating, because everywhere she goes, she sees parts and how much money she can get for that, and how much money she can get for this, how she can take apart this and get the most money for this, because that's how she grew up, as a scavenger, and just never left her. That was like seriously interesting. And it's in a book.
Yeah.
Everybody complains about how she's a nothing character, but she's a lot more interesting elsewhere. And it's sad.
Yeah, and it points to the disservice that all the characters in the sequels were done, because in the actual films they're not given that room to grow or room to shine or room to show their little individual traits that make them themselves. It's like, this is the
Definitely.
mission, this is what we have to do, and it's like, okay, you're a good guy and you're a bad guy, and that's kind of all the beats that you get from these films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Finn. He could have had a fascinating Stormtrooper revolt story.
Yeah.
Even in The Rise of Skywalker, he's force sensitive. He never actually said it, but
Yeah.
that's what he was going to tell Rey. When he was like, "I never told you." It wasn't. It was that he was force sensitive.
See, that's like the most egregious example, I think, of the problem that you're highlighting, is that, like, it doesn't count if it's not in the movie. And there are many things that are really important for understanding these characters that are not like the kind of supplementary information that like normally just enhances experience when you read a book. Like, there are things that clearly should have been in the film. And the fact that Finn not being confirmed force sensitive in the film is like the best example of the way that they just didn't honor the characters. Like,
Yeah.
I'm positive a scene of some description was shot, and it seems to have been edited out, probably for time, because the movie was very long and very packed. But like,
Yeah.
that just tells me how little you care about Finn as a character,
Yeah.
to not even give him his one piece of character development for this film. And also, like, throw it in at the last minute and not do anything with it, because Finn being a force-sensitive stormtrooper who was kidnapped as a child is a really interesting plot point that we just didn't do anything with.
Never did anything with, and never got to see.
I mean, I think
Definitely.
I get salty about the sequels, but that is the kernel of why I am so salty about the sequels, is that there's stuff in there that really interests me, and it's underdeveloped, underexplained, swept aside, and like, I'm
It's true.
bored, I'm frustrated, I can point my face at them, and there are plenty of things that I like looking at, and there are jokes that I find funny, and there are things that work for me, but like, as a story, it's one of the most unfulfilling experiences I've had. I was just like, let me down. Amen. One more time. Like,
yeah, and it's still happening. Like, there's a Luke and Lando book coming out soon.
Yeah, to fill in the Pisana backstory.
What is it? Secrets of the Sith? Is that what it is? And yeah, Lando, yeah, the Pisana thing, which would be interesting. Actually, it sounds like a cool adventure story. But Janna is Lando's daughter, and that'll be explained in this book, I suppose.
Yeah, that's another one. They like look at each other, like,
yeah,
and you cast her for that. You I'm so cranky, like, but like, come on,
tell him, Sig, tell him.
You cast her to be his daughter, and then all you give me is them looking at each other at the end of the film in a like blink and you'll miss it kind of moment. Like, you cowards. Say something. Put it in the narrative.
Oh my God, I know. If you
and she was good.
Yeah,
I liked her.
Yeah,
she was for like the 3 seconds she was in there. I really liked her.
Yeah.
They didn't have shit actors in this movie. They had great people.
That's one of the many tragedies, I think, of this movie and the sequels in general, is that you had such top-notch performers part of this cast, and they just struggle to get that shine that they didn't have an opportunity for.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's something that they had in mind at the time? Like, okay, we'll tell this story later in a book, or we'll tell the comic later. Or do you think this is just people like fic writers, working around it?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I mean, the vibe I get from The Rise of Skywalker is like the same kind of vibe I get from the end of the Hobbit movies. And I would love maybe some more behind the scenes stuff to kind of illustrate what was going on. But it has the energy of a film that was written at the last minute, produced at the last minute, shot at the last minute, and edited at the last minute. And when you are that pressed for time and you are that tired, I can understand going, fuck it, we'll just cut that out. But it's bad filmmaking. And it's actually bad management by Disney, who pushed to have, we're going to do one film a year. We're going to do one film a year. Well, I would rather you push it back and we'll just wait for you to do a better film. I think ultimately the artist is kind of responsible for the art that they put out. I think better choices could have been made at many stages, but I do have sympathy for the fact that it was clearly a tight schedule. They clearly did not have the time they needed to shoot this, and it shows. It shows so much in the fact that this was just thrown together at the last minute. And unfortunately, the vibe that it kind of gives me is that they don't care, which is probably unfair. I think that they probably did care, but I also think that they were probably tired or something, just ready to be done and had a hard deadline to hit. And but it's sad. It's hard to watch, man. Like, it's just like, it's like watching someone fall downstairs over and over and over again. You're just like, stop falling. Don't get up. Just end it.
I think we're being fair. I think we're being fair when we say this stuff. Like, we understand they didn't have a lot of time and they're just trying to get it done. And they had a boardroom of people probably like breathing down their necks. And that's really sad. We're not whining over our childhoods being ruined. I think we're being very fair in our criticism of this movie and these sequels as a whole. What do you think in 20 years is it going to be like the sequels? The kids that came to Star Wars with the sequels when they grow up.
There are people that hate the prequels, and they probably think that we're absolute maniacs. And I think that I'm going to be that person, because I know that there are people who love The Rise of Skywalker, and I kind of think they're absolute maniacs. But like, I think like that's kind of cool. You know what? Like, it's hard for me to imagine a universe in which I would look back on this in 20 years and think, actually, you know what? This was a really well-made film. But I'm genuinely like kind of enamored by people who really love it, because I just find it fascinating. Like, and if it does turn out that there's a whole generation of kids that were really inspired by this and they loved it, I mean, I see kids dressing up as Rey, and like, I think that's really cool. And if there is a generation of kids that grew up to really love this film, then how can I be mad at that? Like,
I've never had a problem with people enjoying something. Like, if you were young and you were these movies connected to you, and these are your first Star Wars movies. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about my experience with my first Star Wars movie, and it's really special to me. If this is special to you and you grew up and you're like, the sequels, I'm like, right on. Okay, celebrate what you love. It does not bother me. I hope that, that they have a good time, really. And maybe they can give the prequels a look. Maybe they'll like those too. Yeah. We can join forces. Against fandoms that hate us.
I think the difference for me is that George Lucas, like I look at George Lucas as somebody who was ahead of their time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think of J.J. Abrams in that same way.
No, I think he's very of the time in many ways.
Of the time, yes, yeah.
He's very clearly in the time, in the sense that he was brought on and he did the job that he was going to do.
Yeah,
I think the Disney era speaks to that in a lot of ways. Maybe the visionary sense is not really there that George Lucas really championed.
That leads me into my first question of lightning round. Because I think we've said all that we need to say about The Rise of Skywalker.
We are ready.
So my first lightning round question is, if you had a dream director to map out this sequel trilogy, who would it be?
I've now forgotten every director in existence.
I mean, I kind of feel like the obvious answer is George Lucas. Is he in play?
Like, sure. I mean, why not?
You know what? Yeah, that is the correct answer. George Lucas.
I have not obviously had access to his full treatment for the sequels. I've loved what I've heard about his plans for the sequel trilogy. I would have loved to see that come to fruition. The only other person I can think of who would be really interesting, but it would really be a toss of the coin, would be Guillermo del Toro, because I know he's not a science fiction kind of person, but he's definitely a fantasy person. And I think he could have done something super interesting, especially if we were keeping a similar story to what we got and dealing with like Snoke and Kylo Ren and the brainwashing and all of that kind of stuff and the fantasy elements of the Force. And like, I think he has such a specific vision that I can see either really, really working with the source material or really, really not working with the source material. But I think it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe some cool aliens.
There would be cool aliens. Like, I think...
Really cool.
Yeah. But he does kind of darkness in a way that I find quite compelling because...
Yes.
Like, I think it would work with what they seem to be going for with the kind of dark side of the Force. But I also think that he's got a really good noggin, and I hope that he would actually read the materials and...
Agreed.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Agreed.
But he cares. He cares a lot about storytelling. He cares a lot about mythology. He cares a lot about fairy tales. I think that his background might make him a really interesting director.
Yeah, he cares about fairy tales, and that's something that's really important to George, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could follow up this with a good answer. I guess, like, just thinking about recent things that I've enjoyed, maybe some kind of, like, collaborative effort between, like, Jack Schaefer and the Duffer Brothers that might create something really interesting.
The Duffer Brothers.
I know, because like they're legitimately the last show that I watched was Stranger Things season 4, and I really enjoyed their writing and the way things tied together in that, and you can tell that they're really good planners when they want to be.
Yeah.
So
and I think Schaefer is such a great storyteller.
She is such a great storyteller, and I love the emotional beats that she does, and I love the emotional beats that happens in Stranger Things. So I think their collab here somewhere, even if it's just writing it, would be really cool. Yeah. That's my answer.
I was thinking about who could actually handle like blockbusters like this, you know. I was thinking of somebody like Taika Waititi. I know he's writing his own apparently.
Yeah.
And he would be able to have, you know, the humor along with, you know, the serious feels.
Yeah.
I'd like to see his take on the dark side, honestly.
Yeah.
Or the Russo brothers, you know? I think that they would do a decent job, honestly. I think that a brothers, the Duffer brothers, or Russo brothers, like a brothers or a brother-sister, like a duo of some kind, like, or Peter Jackson and his wife, right? Yeah. I think that it takes more than one person. I think it takes...
I agree,
you know, I think that one person is this is just too much for one person. I think it takes a duo, honestly.
Yeah. And like historically, like even for George Lucas, it was quite a task, and I think he did a really good job at what he did, but you need a few people for that kind of firepower that he was able to create.
Yeah.
Off topic, but I would watch a weird Wes Anderson film set in the Jedi Temple.
You know, I was thinking this. I was like, Wes Anderson might make a good, like, if you wanted like
be like a one-off, but like set in the Jedi Temple.
So I was thinking like Wes Anderson. If you put Wes Anderson and Chris Columbus together, and you can get like that little spirit of Star Wars in there and get some of that charm, but while also being very stylistic.
Do we have to have Jason Schwartzman in it?
No.
Who would he?
No. That's a really good. This has been a really fun question. I love this question.
Yeah, it was good.
My second question is, but it was something we didn't really touch on, was the Force Ghost, the voices.
Yes.
At the end, and how we all kind of feel like we got robbed of seeing some cool Force Ghosts, and you know, blah blah blah. If you could pick one Force Ghost to help Rey out in the end, who would you pick? Who do you think would be the best?
I mean, if we're going by...
maybe Quinlan Voss would be good for her in that moment, because he's someone who's been on this dark side kind of weird journey. Maybe he would have some really wise things to say to her in those moments. Maybe. That's not my final answer.
I was going to say that Anakin, because one, finish your job, sir. Like, check your work. I feel like he started this. He should really finish it.
Yeah, you don't ghost her.
And by by the rules of the sequels, the ghost can actually like send down lightning and shit, so he can really be proactive. Because I would not ask Anakin to do a pep talk. I'm talking about he should get some lightning down and just smite Palpatine and check his corpse to make sure that he's actually dead this time. If it's pep talk, Qui-Gon.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of like Anakin coming up with Palpatine and be like, "Surprise, bitch!" and just like redirect the Force lightning. Yeah. That'd be so fun. He's like, "Oh, you really did get old and wrinkly, huh?"
Old wrinkly.
Wrinkly.
Yeah, I think that those are both solid answers. I think I would have Mace.
Yeah, I contemplated. The other good choice.
When do we not contemplate Mace Windu?
He nearly took Palpatine down. Like, Palpatine mowed down everyone else, but Mace Windu would have had him if it weren't for Anakin.
It would have been really poetic if he did come and then he was like, let me finish this round here.
Look, Ma, no hands. Lightning.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like Mace deserves his chance.
He does.
A second chance.
Justice for Mace. And apparently his corpse has been robbed by Hux. Just unacceptable treatment of Mace Windu.
Yeah.
I know. So, those are my lightning round questions.
Mace Windu and Anakin's Force Ghost showing up. Anakin being like, I'm moral support in case you need it.
Moral support. Anakin, you're not even basic support.
He would be standing next to Rey like, no, listen, watch this. This time it's going to be really good. And then just Mace Windu takes him out.
Yeah, Mace Windu gets stuff done.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
He really does.
Team Windu.
I was thinking Kanan Jarrus just because I want to see a cartoon standing next to Rey. I don't know. I just think of strange things because we know, there's no live action Kanan. Still love him.
Yeah.
You know, who would he be? Freddie Prinze Jr.? I don't know. That's kind of funny. Freddie Prinze Jr. standing next to Rey.
Yeah.
It would have to be someone.
I love that he was one of the voices, though. That is.
Yeah.
I do love that. And Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're getting into like some other kind of territories here. So that's our conversation on the rise of Skywalker. So thanks for tuning into the Kyber Collective. If you like what you heard, please give us a like. And if you've got something to say, drop us a comment below. Both of these help make us easier to find for other fans and are the best way you can support our work. If you'd like to keep up to date with our episodes, you can subscribe. And you can always talk to us on Twitter at Kyber Collective. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks. And until then, remember, the crystal is the heart of the blade. The heart is the crystal of the Jedi. The Jedi is the crystal of the Force. The Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi, you are one.